YouTube, Sinister here, and did you know that From Software, game developer that brought to life the Bloodborne series, hates every single person alive? Before I jump into the facts and my own opinions based on those facts, I'd like to add a disclaimer. This is not a theory video. This is a video containing mainly facts and is primarily an analysis video. It will contain many of my own personal opinions, so get over it or GTFO. Now let's hop straight into the wonderful world of Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and or Bloodborne. Now I'm sure I can imagine what a vast majority of you are thinking. Well, no shit, Triforce Bro. From Software are nothing but hate. Just look at how hard these games are. And for those of you who haven't played the games and are basing that simply on what other people have told you or what you have read, allow me this. The game isn't as hard as it may initially seem. Yes, difficulty spikes run rampant in Souls games, but that curve teaches you how best to approach new areas and enemies. And once you figure out how to play properly, the games aren't really that hard. A few bosses will slaughter you endlessly, but for the most part, it's simple if you play it defensively. But where does that difficulty actually come from, and why did they make Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2, the only games by From I can speak from experience about, so goddamn hard? The answer is so simple, and it's right up here. From Software hates you, hates me, and hates everybody else because of who we are as gamers, and let's break that down into gamer cliques. The good old casual gamer. The ones that don't fit into the ranks of gamer. The ones who solely play New Super Mario Bros., Animal Crossing, and Call of Duty. This is the gaming demographic that this game is designed to piss off the most. For one, they don't know much about how metagame works, let alone how metagame and action RPGs work. These are the guys who are most prone to continuing to do the same things and trying the same tactics over and over again, never learning from their mistakes and deaths. The ones who will probably never even get past the Asylum Demon. And this game acknowledges that these guys are going to quit with a repetitive "you died" declaration after every failed attempt to progress, and the catchphrase "prepare to die." Imagine, if you will, a Super Smash Bros. Tournament. The casual gamer will be the guy who repetitively gets his shit wrecked in the melee bracket. He neither understands nor is willing to gain a grasp on the advanced techniques that make melee an unusually fast fighting game. They can't see that the opponent is utilizing wave dashing, dash dancing, L canceling, shuffles, or any of the other countless techniques because advanced gaming is an abstract concept to them. And so they lose, again and again. The casual gamer will never get far in any Souls game, and in my opinion that I am unashamed to vocalize loudly to anyone who asks, they should just quit before they even start, because they will only end up quitting after a very brief session anyway. This game is tailored to produce broken controllers and raging humanoids. Let's not throw casuals breaking probably the only controller they will ever own into the mix. This is one of two categories that I most fit in. I have searched high and low across the deepest parts of the interwebs, trying to find information about the story and lore involved in Dark Souls, and there isn't much. Most of what has been fleshed out is thanks to other super dedicated fans traversing the deepest, darkest places of this game and seeking out every bit of dialogue and item description to eventually piece together some form of coherent story. My biggest flaw as a gamer is the need for a progressive story that tells you exactly what is happening, what has happened, and what is destined to still happen. And this series has very little of that. From Software has went back to gaming's roots where you didn't have much direction or persuasion and no backstory to speak of, except for the game manual, which is essentially what the opening of Dark Souls is. This was a big letdown to me, but I quickly got over that because these games are majestic as fuck. Very beautifully crafted works of art. If you're hoping for some depth regarding lore and story progression, you will be disappointed, but don't let that deter you from playing the series. Another huge bitch I have is that there isn't really any backstory about NPCs, locations, or enemies. Bosses have plenty of backstory if you pay a lot of attention and search hard enough. And here's the greatest example I can think of, Sense Fortress. Yes, that oh so notorious location you absolutely have to traverse if you plan on progressing in the slightest. This location is where all hell breaks loose. But what is Sense Fortress? Well, it's an enormous fortress. That's it. There's no backstory. The game doesn't tell you who Sen is, why he owns a fortress, or why his fortress is guarded by serpent men, swinging guillotines, elevators of death, enormous rolling boulders, dart traps, giants, titanite demons, and a motherfucking iron golem that's 40 feet tall. Don't quote me on that, he just seems really overwhelmingly enormous compared to everything else, save for the gaping dragon. Back on topic, none of this is explained, and Sen isn't referenced a single time after the events of the fortress. Who or what Sen is remains a well-shrouded mystery. Oh, and did I mention mimics? Oh well, we'll get back to that later in the video. The second gamer cliche that speaks volumes about who I am as a gamer, also a YouTuber who covers many aspects of Dark Souls. You should check it out, that one video gamer. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I am, to my very soul, a completionist. And apparently, From Software kept me and my fellow completionists at the forefront of their list of people to shit on when they developed this franchise. Because to a completionist standards, the game isn't over until you've done everything you can possibly do in any and every game you begin. And Dark Souls isn't just a game you can do that easily with. There's tons of content that you can easily and altogether just miss in a playthrough of Dark Souls. The world's massive, and until you've mentally mapped out every inch of every area, you won't ever know if there's anything you've missed. There's a ton of bosses. There are rare enemies that don't respawn but bestow you with extra souls, rare weapons or armor, unlock hidden paths, or in one or two cases make certain NPCs available. And then of course, there's New Game Plus. In New Game Plus, the difficulty ramps up by roughly 40%, meaning everything that you've learned in your first playthrough will amount to basically a steaming wet pile of shit. You have to do everything you've already done with the difficulty at nearly 1.5 times greater. And then after you've done that, you have to New Game Plus again, multiple times, until the difficulty eventually flatlines. All while trying to achieve the massively high maximum soul level of 709 and 713, depending on which class you've chosen. To my knowledge, no one has actually legitimately maxed out their level in Dark Souls, and it isn't hard to see why. To reach the highest level from the previous level, you require up to 1,692,838,298 souls. For reference as to exactly what that entails, in the standard run of Dark Souls pre-New Game Plus, Ornstein and Smog, a duo of late-game bosses whom you fight simultaneously, only award you with 70,000 souls. And if memory serves true, Lord Gwyn drops an underwhelming 120,000 souls. Underwhelming when viewing a scope such as the amount that I just described. So I reiterate, From Software hates completionists because completing the first Dark Souls in its entirety is an improbable and unfair task to set for any human being, let alone the spiritual successor Demon's Souls, the sequel Dark Souls 2 and its sequel Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne because it's totally a Dark Souls game. This one is kind of funny, only because I totally didn't fall for the trick like everybody else did. Okay, I totally fell for it. So if you're a normal human being, you're a greedy bastard who takes no shame in pillaging treasure chests and looting from corpses. Just kidding. But really, the owners of the items don't need them anymore, am I right? So you've spent the entire game scanning your surroundings for chests or little glowing lights pointing you towards lootable objects. Then you arrive at Sen's Fortress. I told you we'd be coming back here. You crawl your way through a good portion of the middle level of the fortress with the scars and souls to show for it. You've already found one or two chests in here. That's when you enter a decent-sized room with armor statues to your left, like 3 or 4 pillars, and smack dab in the middle of the room off to the right is another treasure chest. You greedily and excitedly dash up to it, spamming the interact button. What happens next? Can anyone tell me? No? The chest opens its mouth full of hundreds of razor-sharp teeth, sprouts long gangly arms, and pulls you in, munching you up armor and all. Instant kill. And I can only assume that this is what From Software designers were thinking by throwing this nonchalantly this far into the game. Suck it, you greedy asshole gamers. Enough said. From Software hates retro gamers. What is he going on about now, you may be thinking to yourself. And just hear me out for a minute. The high level of difficulty with oddly placed difficulty spikes, the lack of in-game story? Retro games and gamers are hated by From Software because, well, retro games did it first. Nah, I'm just joking. But have you noticed the resemblance between Dark Souls and retro games like Legend of Zelda, Double Dragon, Battletoads, and Golden Axe? I'll fill you in. Very tough games, very unique in that they were a first to gaming, very difficult to put down your controller unless it's being flung across the room out of sheer frustration and anger at how cheap the game is and how it's the controller's fault. Yeah, it isn't your controller. You just suck. There's one final demographic I want to bring up. Akazaru, aka Gum Gum Boy, is what we hardcores call a trophy hunter. These are the gamers that will stop at nothing to collect every last trophy or achievement, going to extremes such as playing one game for 30 hours straight to collect a few trophies, playing an already difficult game on the hardest setting, playing shit games that no one else would so much as look at just for the easy trophies, and suffering through seemingly endless matches in PvP in a game they may or may not truly enjoy. And From Software has taken a very unique approach to these guys. They've thrown in the mandatory story trophies, of course, but mingled in with those are a ton of trophies with little to no direction, with descriptions as vague as, hate your life? Here, hate it some more. That's not even mentioning the hidden trophies, which give the player exactly no direction whatsoever. And keep in mind, there are 3 main series games, a spiritual precursor, and a spiritual successor. If you're a trophy hunter, I would suggest giving up entirely on any inkling towards earning that illustrious platinum trophy in any one of these games, because you'll be ripping your hair out, grinding your teeth into dust, and crying tears of remorse and self-loathing before you even reach the halfway point. Okay, now that we got the main portion of this video out of the way, I want to bring up a topic that has been talked about endlessly on Dark Souls forums and chats. I'll pose it as a question because I'd really like to hear some input from you guys, so let me know what you think in the comments section. So, can someone actually be good at Dark Souls, or does it come down to simply luck? I've seen countless forum discussions and memes on the subject, and here's my opinion. Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne are not impossible games, and it's not impossible to be legitimately good at them. You die, you learn, and that's the biggest aspect of the games. By dying, you teach yourself new ways to overcome any obstacle, and after enough time put in, souls and humanity dematerializing with that imaginary cackling laughter I always hear when I die trying to retrieve them, and rage quits or broken controllers, you achieve a state of gracefulness in the way you conquer your enemies. I feel like I've reached a point where I'm legitimately good at Dark Souls. I still die now and then because I get careless or overwhelmed, but for the most part I can hold my own against the strongest monsters the game can throw at me. Hell, out of the last several bosses I've fought, the only ones I had trouble with were Ornstein and Smog, and it only took me 3 attempts. I don't count Seath because seriously, how the fuck do you get the Moonlight Greatsword without dying? I really wanted the Leo ring, so taking the easy way out and killing Ornstein first simply wasn't an option. I died once against Great Grey Wolf Sif, which wouldn't have happened, but when her health was down to about 1/10, I fumbled the controls and rolled instead of dashing, which led to her landing the final and fatal blow. I didn't even rage, it was completely my fault. And I knew I could sneak my way past her and retrieve my 48,000 souls and 7 soft humanities, and then utterly dominate her. I will admit that it took me 2 whole deaths, the first with Solaire on my side even, before I figured out how to deal with the boss duo. Again, the game is a whole lot of to learn is to die. To finalize the topic, watch Oni Play's playthrough of Dark Souls and tell me that you can't be good, only lucky, at Dark Souls. Because I won't believe a word you're saying, nor will I believe that you believe what you're saying. Chris is a god at Dark Souls. But again, I want to hear your thoughts on the matter, so start a comment thread and let's see those opinions. I'm Sinister, this is SuperTriforce Bros, and thanks for watching.